South Florida. This is Headliners, only on CBS News Miami.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Headliners. I'm Elliot Rodriguez. We begin with a report about a young South Florida woman sharing her story after someone leaked new photos she had taken years ago. That leak also included other personal information, leading to major safety concerns. The most baffling thing, the hackers didn't do it for money. CBS News Miami's Lisa Petrillo spoke to the victim and has her story.
I wanted to do this because if I can help any girl that this might be happening to, who feels alone, just know that you're not alone.
We'll call her Emily. We shaded her face and altered her voice to protect her. That's because for the past 10 months, Emily, who lives and works in South Florida, has been harassed over private nude photos she took of herself 6 years ago while in college.
At the time that I took these photos, I didn't think I was being stupid. I didn't see anything wrong with it because I wasn't sharing them with people. These were my private photos, like my private things that were stolen from me and like shared everywhere without my consent and to harass me and terrorize me.
She believed the photos were safe because she had them stored in a private file on Snapchat.
The thing is this is a different generation for us. Everything is digital. Everything's on the phone. Everything is saved on an app.
Early last year, she received this DM message on her Twitter account telling her there were nude photos of her online. Emily didn't believe it until she saw the actual website.
And so what went through your mind at that time?
Immediate panic. My first instinct was to call my mom, and she ran in, and there were so many tears and anxiety because, you know, I didn't know at that point to the extent of which what they had and what was going on.
What followed was a nightmare she could never have imagined. The hackers sent these exact messages with links to her private personal pictures to almost everyone in her life, including her work.
Basically, any single way that they could try to get in contact with me, they tried. Every single member of my family, neighbors, friends, you know, and coworkers. And it wasn't just every day I would get a text. It was every 20 minutes I would get a text. It immediately started an anxiety and panic attack for me.
Why they were doing it, what their motivation was.
Right.
It wasn't about money. It was pure control and evilness.
Yeah, because they never asked for money. These people shared like private details about my life where people could find me and knew where I lived and how to contact me and my family. So like it became like a physical safety issue.
She went to the police and met with a male officer.
To be quite honest, he didn't take it seriously. It was judgmental, side-eye, and he basically told me because I wasn't under the child age, that legally by age, that there was probably nothing that they could do for me. Sorry. It's okay.
Emily has now shut down all of her social media accounts. She has a new private unlisted phone number, and in recent weeks, the harassment has slowed down.
Why is this important to you to do this interview?
If I can educate a single parent on talking with your kids, talk to them about how privacy is not sacred. It's not at all, especially in the digital world. And once things are out there, they're out there forever. I will never be able to fully get those things back. That will always be out there in the world, being traded, being seen, and that's horrible. So if I can help protect any girl, even one.
Sadly, this is still not over for Emily. An investigation is underway, but no arrests have been made. I've spoken to cyber intelligence units in law enforcement, and they tell me this is a huge problem, not only for the thousands of women here in the state of Florida, but also around the world. I'm Lisa Petrillo, CBS 4 News.
As funerals continue for the victims killed in the Uvalde, Texas mass shooting, the tragedy has once again reignited national debate on gun laws. And some are pointing to legislation passed right here in Florida in the wake of the Parkland shooting. It was a bill many thought our lawmakers would never be able to agree on, but they did. CBS News Miami's Joe Gorcho takes a look at how Florida may become a national example.
Florida's legislature might serve as the roadmap to national bipartisan gun reform. The Sunshine State passed such legislation following the 2018 Parkland school shooting.
You look down a hallway of a school, a place where kids are supposed to grow up and learn, then prepare themselves for the future. And instead, you see a war zone.
Jared Moskowitz served in the 97th District right next door to Parkland. 17 were killed in the massacre. In the 48 hours that followed, Moskowitz asked state leaders to tour the school.
And they were all crying. Every single one of them.
That night, Moskowitz went to dinner with then Speaker of the House, Richard Corcoran, writing potential legislation on napkins.
2 napkins. Here's the world of everything. And then we started talking about what was possible. What could we get the votes for? Remember, this is a Republican House, a Republican Senate, A+ rated members of the NRA.
Republican leaders at the time, like Jose Oliva, a future House Speaker, said preventing another mass school shooting became the goal.
We wanted to make sure that these types of warning signs could be seen and could be documented and could be acted upon. Go back and roll the tapes. We disagreed about a lot, but we didn't doubt each other's sincerity.
Oliva and Moskowitz agree that not demonizing the other side publicly was key to bipartisan efforts. A potential obstacle was an influential lobbyist, the NRA.
When all the other gun violence prevention stuff went in there, the NRA came out against the bill, started working the members against it.
They felt very strongly about one component, one of the 2 lightning rods on the bill.
Oliva says some were against raising the age to purchase firearms to 21. Others oppose the Guardian program, allowing teachers to be armed in schools with training.
Democrats didn't have the power to change the law, but the Republicans did. And so I used every relationship I had, every lever of government, every button I could push.
Wanting to seize the moment, Moskowitz, Oliva, and other critical political leaders collaborated, creating the Marjorie Stoneman Public Safety Act.
It wasn't about a political win. It was about keeping kids safe in school.
The legislation barely passed both chambers, with members from each party voting against it.
Voted for it, believing that this was a good product created in a good way.
Once passed, the MSD bill provided hundreds of millions of dollars for mental health resources and school safety. The act raised the minimum age to purchase a firearm to 21, created a 3-day waiting period on firearm purchases, the Guardian program, and a red flag law allowing law enforcement to remove weapons from those deemed dangerous. Measures Moskowitz believes D.C. should consider.
It's a good argument to Democrats, to their Republican colleagues up in Washington. If Republican Florida can do it, you can too. And there were no repercussions. And so that's why I also think it's being used as the model.
Joe Gorcho, CBS News, Miami.
Housing help is needed across South Florida. We're seeing homes with sky-high price tags and inventory is very low. But has the market cooled down, or are we in for something even worse? CBS News Miami's Joe Murray is speaking with a veteran realtor about what's going on in the market.
Matthew Cirillo has been searching for months to find a new family home.
We can't get what we're looking for. Everything's basically what's available, and there's almost nothing available.
9 out of 10 transactions I've had for 3 years, 2.5 years, are all cash.
I'm sorry, there's a second page here.
Larry Revere has been selling real estate for nearly 40 years. He said the market exploded as COVID gripped the country in 2020.
They discovered our town, which is, as we know, spectacular. Best town in America. Certainly the prettiest, with 200 miles of water.
With rising popularity came rising prices, and now there are not enough available homes in the pipeline.
Overall, there is less activity, less transactions.
Sellers like Ron Weinbaum feel they have hit the jackpot. He's moving his growing family to a bigger home in Boca Raton after getting close to $1 million for his modest home in Fort Lauderdale.
Obviously, the more money you get, the better. So I just roll it into my new house, and that means I just can have a smaller mortgage.
If you are trying to sell, Larry Revere offered this advice.
If it hasn't contracted in 10 days to 2 weeks, drop it down a couple of percentage points and drop it down every 2 to 3 weeks till it sells. Don't play the game of I'm selling to become rich.
And if you are a buyer?
But don't be afraid to buy, because we are in the hottest market, not hottest real estate market, hottest society, hottest town to live in.
Another big question, will prices be coming down anytime soon? Realtors I talk with don't believe it's going to happen right now, but maybe look for a change by the end of the year into early 2023. In Fort Lauderdale, Joan Murray, CBS 4 News.
When Headliners returns, our show takes us to storm season 2022 and what you need to know before hitting the road during a storm.
From South Florida, this is Headliners, only on CBS News Miami.
Welcome back. I'm Elliot Rodriguez. During South Florida storm season, driving can be very dangerous, and any distraction can lead to life-threatening accidents. That includes something we've seen time and time again, a car ending up in a canal. So, what do you do if you're stuck inside a car in a situation like that? CBS News Miami's Bo Bethia spoke to an expert and has some safety tips you should always keep in mind.
Well, this is a window puncher and this is an emergency rescue hammer. And officials say they can mean the difference between life and death if your car ends up in one of the many retention ponds like this one across South Florida.
Sometimes it's just seconds that you have to be able to react.
Captain Ignatius Carroll with the City of Miami Fire and Rescue is referring to the time needed to save a life once a car drives into a canal or retention pond. In recent weeks, there have been a rash of similar crashes. This one happening just last week on Florida Turnpike as a driver attempted to exit onto Southwest 8th Street.
The vehicle lost control, overturned, driving off of the roadway into the pond.
A Good Samaritan rushed to the driver's aid, but to no avail, as he later passed away. But Carroll says there are steps drivers can take to ensure their safety.
Take those seconds that you have while the vehicle is still above water to get out. First thing you do is you want to take off your seatbelt.
It's common for the seatbelt to jam in these instances, so it's important to have a tool like this one that can be used to cut the seatbelt. The next step is to get out of the car, and there are tools for that.
They have different types of hammers that have actual seatbelt cutters on it, as well as a sharp tip that will allow you to break a window. And most of the time, the best place to do is to try to hit it in the corner.
This is one of those tools that can be used to break the window, and it stores easily in the driver's side of your car. Just slide it in, take it out when you need it, hit the window. And Carroll says if you don't have one of these, there's still hope.
If you do not have those tools and you find yourself having to use a sharp object or a shoe, or even you're having to use your elbow, then you will hit that in the center.
Still, Carroll says his best advice is to use precaution on the roadways, especially in bad weather.
We can't encourage our community enough to heed these safety tips and be careful when you're out there driving.
Travelers flying to the Caribbean for business, pleasure, or to see family are faced with tighter and continually changing COVID testing procedures. As CBS 4's Hank Tester reports, some island nations have cut the mandatory pre-flight entry testing to as little as 1 day.
A number of Caribbean nations have dropped their COVID protocols, making it easier to get into some of the island nations without proof of vaccination or a pre-flight COVID test, but not all.
It's a little more complicated, but there are countries where you don't have to do anything. You literally show up just like you used to do before COVID.
Here are the countries that have opened up. No proof needed: Jamaica, Grenada, Bonaire, Curacao, Aruba. The Dominican Republic never required any proof. What was pretty much a simple blanket requirement to enter all Caribbean nations is now a patchwork of regulations.
There are certain countries where if you're vaccinated, you don't have to test, but if you're unvaccinated, you do have to test. Then there are countries where they only allow fully vaccinated travelers.
Take the Bahamas. Even though the CDC has dropped the travel advisory level from 3 to level 2, they have not changed entrance requirements. The Bahamas require a test whether you're vaccinated or not, and online pre-travel registration is required. You have to do your research. Each country has a travel website and requirements are listed. And then, don't forget, even with restrictions being relaxed, one issue for travelers entering the U.S., including from the Caribbean.
You have to do that test within 24 hours before you get back on the plane to go back home.
U.S. and Caribbean tourism organizations have strongly lobbied to drop the return test requirement, which they say now is not needed. It's a hassle for travelers, they claim, and hinders business. I'm Hank Tester, CBS 4 News.
When Headliners returns, we're showcasing one South Florida man who's using his traditions and culture to inspire others.
From South Florida, this is Headliners, only on CBS News Miami.
Welcome back. I'm Elliot Rodriguez. They're calling it the Underdeck, a newly redesigned public space spanning from the Perez Art Museum in downtown Miami to Overtown. It'll run under a reconstructed I-395. CBS News Miami's Joel Waldman joins us from Miami with a closer look at this ambitious project.
You're getting a peek into the future.
I love living here. From what of all the pictures I have seen, they are going to make it a pedestrian park that have water parks.
Lifelong Overtown resident Jackie Bell is excited about the Underdeck. Renderings illustrating the 33-acre public space that'll be developed by Florida Department of Transportation and the City of Miami, running below 395 from Overtown to Biscayne Bay.
They had to do something for this community because they keep destroying it.
Like back in the 1960s when 395 was constructed, resulting in this for Overtown.
Slum and blight, because black businesses that was here, they had to move.
This 395 project actually disrupted Overtown. It was dubbed urban renewal. Truth be told, it ended up being urban removal.
Now hoping to learn from past mistakes by bringing new life to Overtown and beyond.
We are optimistic that this underdeck, this green space that will reconnect, if you will, Overtown to the other side of the track is going to be significant.
It will be mostly a new community.
We want this public space to be for just that.
Joel Waldman, CBS News Miami.
Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month may have come to an end, but we're putting the spotlight on a man who's inspiring generations through his martial arts and traditions of his culture. CBS News Miami's Maribel Rodriguez has his story.
For more than 5 decades, Master Lee Seung-hung has been sharing his love of martial arts with thousands around the world, from Hong Kong to South Florida. Master Lee began training in Hong Kong when he was just 7 and began teaching as a teen.
I teach the Kung Fu a long time from the Hong Kong.
Master Lee, who is a full contact fighting champion and a champion of forms and weapons, was taught by his brother, Grandmaster Lee Kung-hung. Training and knowledge he is now passing on to the students at his martial arts school he took over from his brother in Sunrise. 24-year-old Cesar Valero is one of his many students and assistant instructor who's been taking classes with Master Lee since he was 4.
Every year I can see myself getting better, development not just physically and towards Kung Fu, but there's a lot of respect that you learn by practicing this, and there's a lot of morals and self-discipline.
And although he was born in Venezuela and raised in the U.S., Cesar has embraced the Asian culture as his own.
We should always upkeep the values, especially as an American. We're a melting pot, so it's very important that we uphold and respect everyone's tradition. And the more we know, the more we come to be familiarize ourselves with traditions, I think the more acceptance we can be.
And it's his values and traditions Master Lee hopes will live on in hundreds of students for generations to come.
I would like to keep the tradition going. We don't want it to get lost somewhere along, like in another 100 years. We wanted to keep it going.
Maribel Rodriguez, CBS News, Miami.
Thanks so much for joining us for this half hour of Headliners. And as always, keep it right here to CBS News Miami for up-to-the-minute breaking news and weather 24 hours a day. Make it a great one.